And
Yeah.
I think that's the message I want to share with people. You're going to get your ass kicked. But the difference between stress and challenge is one word, and that's perspective. So when you get that butt kick in, if you get up and your perspective is, wow, what a beautiful lesson, then you're
Yeah.
going to achieve.
This is Andrew Bukowski with Muscle Insider, and I am joined today by Stuart Warren Dansby, the star and feature of the award-winning documentary Taking the Fight. Welcome today.
Thank you, Andrew. It's absolutely my privilege and pleasure to be here today.
So let me ask you first. Now, when you look at this documentary, what was it that made you decide to want to get into fighting in your 50s?
That's a question I get asked often, right? Like, what did you have a stupid attack all of a sudden? You just decide to get punched in the face later in life. Um, I'd always considered myself an athlete. I'd always trained and worked out like a lot of people do, lifted weights, did cardio, and I always wanted to get into boxing. I had a friend of mine that was a kickboxer, and he said, "Let me train you in this." And the first time I trained, I was horrific. It was the first time I ever actually felt completely unathletic, um, and really impotent as an athlete, right? And it was just so frustrating. And I remember at the end of that session, he gave me 30 seconds just to stand there and hit him, and I couldn't. And after 15 seconds, my hands were down at my side, and I'm like, wow, this guy could absolutely destroy me. But it captivated me at that moment. It was so challenging and so difficult that it captivated me. And I think there's something, obviously primal about fighting, but there's also a great beauty and an art there. Um, and so I just absolutely knew it couldn't beat me, and I wanted to be good at it. But candidly, I also never gave consideration to how old I was. I never thought about that. Other people brought that up to where it became relevant, right? I never thought about the lifetime of injuries that I had leading into it. Those things to me just weren't really that relevant.
It's good. So you said you had an athletic background. Now, were you, other than weightlifting and things, were you involved in other sports growing up or like in your earlier days?
Yeah, like a lot of guys, I wrestled in high school. I played football, but high school was, just a few years back for me.
Hmm.
And I always felt like I have had that athlete's mentality. Um, so it was something I just threw myself into with a great conviction to wanting to compete, right? Um, and that's really it. It was never a great athlete. You and I talked once before. I still don't consider myself a great athlete. Um, I just try and work my ass off and surround myself with great people, right? I bring a couple things to the table. Super athleticism is not one of them.
No, when you mentioned that getting started that first session, and I'm sure other sessions right after that, what would you say was more challenging? Was it the physical aspect of things or the mental, psychological aspect, or a bit of both?
Yeah, I think initially it's the physical, right? Because you're literally when someone's trying to teach you just how to simply throw a jab, there are so many different things you have, like how you rotate your wrist, where your shoulder is, where your weight is balanced, what that looks like what that target is, how it's supposed to flow, and you kind of go into, okay, I've got all these mechanical things I'm supposed to do that I'm not good at, right? Especially weightlifting is not conducive. Weightlifting as we know it, right? Standard back and buys, chest and tries is not conducive to explosiveness, and it's not conducive to the fighting genre, the combat sports. There's a way to lift there that's very functional. But having that, it was just physically really, really challenging. I remember probably 3, 4 months in with the guy that was training me, he said, throw a high kick. Let's see what you can do. And I literally kicked him on the top of his thigh, right? And he said, I said, throw a high kick. I laughed and I said, like, it was above your knee. that's a high kick for me. But I was like a rock'em sock'em robot. I was so physically unable to move the way that he and other fighters move. So initially, it was definitively physical. And then you have to change the way you lift. You have to change everything. And then as you advance, it very much becomes mental, especially when you're training for a fight and especially when you're sparring, because you have these moments, and this is the beauty of the sport and really the message, right? You have moments where you might be 2 minutes into a 5 minute round and you're standing in front of a guy who is dealing punishment on you and has hit you with some hard shots. And you look up and there's 3 minutes left. And then you've got to decide at that moment, who do you want to be today, right? Do you want to be the guy that just survives the round in sparring? Or do you want to be the guy that beats yesterday's version of you and gives your teammate the best round he's ever gotten from you, right? And that's where it's really mental. And of course, that mental aspect ramps up in the heat of a fight.
Hmm. Now, one thing that you mentioned there is, the fighting aspect. And for the people that haven't seen this documentary yet, the way I kind of look at it, it's not really a fighting movie or a documentary, really, is it? It's like, how would you interpret that?
Yeah, I would agree with you. It's no more a fighting documentary than Rocky is a boxing movie. That's what I share with most people. Rocky, almost everybody's seen Rocky. Not everybody that's seen Rocky is a boxing fan. They don't go to watch boxing, right? You don't watch Rocky because it's a boxing movie. You watch it because it's a story of love. It's a story of overcoming the odds. It's a story of pushing yourself beyond your own limits. And really, I'm blessed because this documentary opens with me taking my first fight in a ring at the age of 56 against a 26-year-old. And it follows me for 6 years, finally being able to fight for a championship at the age of 62 against a guy half my age. And I do that with a right knee that doesn't have an ACL, that according to the last surgeon that was in there said, medically speaking, I cannot explain how you can walk on that knee. You have grade 4 arthritis. It's a mess. My left knee is a surgically repaired ACL, grade 4 arthritis. I have a degenerative disc in my back that requires regular Botox injections for me to just function. And I have asthma, right? So, what this story isn't about per se is fighting. We use the fighting as the metaphor to show people the actual way that you can, first off, get out of your own head and quit doubting yourself, right? Because we all have a fight. We all have things that hold us back from what our dreams really are. We think, hey, I can't open a business because I don't have funding, or I can't be a CEO because I don't have a master's degree and I've never had a classically trained business college education. There's maybe we think I can't be a great parent because I had lousy parents, right? Or I can never be in shape because I've always been heavy. We all have things that hold us back from what our dreams are. And what the documentary is the exact way that you achieve your dreams. And it starts with giving your dream that I want it more than I want to breathe energy. And I mean every day. And right when you think, okay, I've got nothing more to give, if all you do is give yourself another inch, another effort, send another email, push a little harder, do one more round, work one more hour, then you'll start attracting the people and the resources. And especially in North America, the people and the resources you need to achieve your dreams, they're all around you, but you're not going to get them until you put that kind of energy out in this world. And when you do, those people and those resources will come forward. And then if you continue to give more, those people are going to give you back more and everybody rises. So this is really the story of how you overcome what you think are problems, what you think are obstacles, and how do you turn them into challenges, and how do you attract that team that's going to kick your ass with honest love and allow everybody to rise up.
Yeah, for sure. That makes so much sense. And, it starts from believing in yourself, I'm sure. And, you talk about that team, and how will you give us a little rundown of the team that you had as your support people, your coaches? Because it's not just a guy you found on the street that was helping you out, you had some heavy hitters
Yeah,
in your corner, right?
yeah, it quickly evolved, and that's what I mean. As an amateur hack fighter, one of my coaches is Greg Cheetah Choplin. He's a three-time world Muay Thai champion. two-time WBC champion, like retired as such, right? My other coach is Manolo Lopez, who was just elected into the Florida MMA Hall of Fame last year. These guys are opposing coaches. The only time they see each other at a fight is on the opposite side of a ring or a cage. And they come together at one moment to corner me. And they've both been with me from the beginning. I've trained out of two different gyms. They both accepted that, and they both work as one team to believe in me and to push me beyond the limits that I ever thought I had and make me better than I ever thought I had. And I've had high level pro fighters, guys like Yoel Romero, literally calling me out and sparring and pushing me, and so many other great fighters, guys I could name all day that if you're in the sport, you would know them, that just push and push and push. And of course, my wife who has always been in my corner, surrounding me with faith, surrounding me with love, grounding me with self-belief, right? And she is as vital of a corner man, although she doesn't give me the best fighting advice. She's as vital as a corner man or corner person as I could ask for. And I literally have teammates that will drop me in practice. And I've had this happen more than once and just go, get up, get the F up right now, come at me and finish the round. Don't think you're going to loaf. You're not. Get up, come at me and finish the round. And there's moments when you just want to quit, right? And there's moments when you want to just pull back and maybe just survive. I have a team that wouldn't let me do that ever, ever, including my coaches and the conversations they had with me that changed my mentality and changed how I looked at those moments that sucked, changed how I looked at those moments when I couldn't breathe, when I was injured, when I was exhausted, right? Because when you can change your perspective in those moments, then you change your results and you change who you are as a human being, and you start being the most highest achieving human being you can be. Does that make sense?
For sure. And I mean, that kind of led into one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like, did you have moments where you sort of doubted yourself or wanted to just literally throw in the towel and quit? Like, what was that like?
I've had, you know, this is the truth, and I'm probably underestimating. For every round I win, I've lost at least 10. Meaning I've literally got my ass kicked 10 times to win one round. And that's something you just have to look at in life. And when I say want it more than you want to breathe, that's what I'm talking about, man. You just got to say, hey, if this dream's really important to me, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I got my ass kicked. We have an expression in fighting: you win or you learn. There's nothing. It's black and white. Did you win? No, but the judges did it. No. Did you win or did you learn? Right. And when you approach things like that, you have to improve. Right. But I've had so many times. I remember a time when I was in a training camp coming into that fight that I was talking to you about. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was probably on my seventh, eighth workout of the week. I'm doing two a days. I'm coming in. My knees are swollen. My knees are swollen every day I train, every single day. And in a training camp, when you're sparring three, four times and everything's ramped up, it's even more so. And it was a Friday afternoon. I trained with my coach for an hour hitting pads. Then a bunch of fighters file in, and he teaches what's called a technique class. You're just doing technique for another hour. Then at the end of that, 2 hours in, we start sparring. And I remember getting my ass kicked by a young fighter. I just turned pro, a guy named Alex Rogers, who's probably fights at 135. I fight at 170. Just handing me my ass. And he keeps kneeing me in the kidney time after time after time. And I'm not doing anything to stop him. I came into it. My attitude, honestly, was crappy. It's like, I'm exhausted. I just want to get through this. I just want to make it through the end of the week. I got one more session tomorrow. Greg pulls me aside, my coach, Greg Choplin, and he's just ripping into me. And he says to me, "What's wrong with you?" And I start making excuses. And I say, "Look, Greg, I'm exhausted. My knees are swollen. I did the best I can." Greg whips out his phone. He says, "Really? This is the best you can do?" And he'd been filming that last round of sparring. And I looked horrible. I looked like a guy who didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and I'll never forget this moment. He says, "You don't get it. You're supposed to be exhausted. You're supposed to be tired. You're supposed to be sore. Because if you're not, how the hell do you call yourself a fighter? And how will you
Yeah.
ever become a champion? You're supposed to have those moments, but in your case, you're hiding from those moments. And I looked at him kind of dumbfounded. He goes, you got to embrace it. You got to want it. You got to want those moments that suck in your life when you are overwhelmed, when you're tired, when you are beat. And you got to own that as your moment of growth. You don't have to win. You just have to get this much better. And right now, you're hiding from that moment. You're not embracing that moment. And I remember
Yeah,
going home that
that's
night. Go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. No, I was gonna say that's some incredible advice, and not just for fighting. That sounds like life advice.
For sure. And that's why I say taking the fight is, as you know, it's the fighting is the metaphor. That is the life advice. And when you're in business, and we all have those moments, we all have those moments in business when we say to ourselves, I don't have the skill to do this. Like what I'm trying to do, what I'm being asked, I don't I don't know how to do this, right? And we also all have had those moments where we're like, okay, I'm going to figure it out. And maybe it takes us 4 or 5 different directions. And finally we get there and then we have that clarity and we're like, I was able to do that. And we grow and we
Yeah.
achieve, right? But we also, as business people, tend to hide from those moments and go, man, I got to reach out to somebody else. Or we try and make excuses. And in my case, in that moment, I was making excuses, right? And I went home that night. I don't know if you know the story of Man of La Mancha, Don Quixote, written by a guy named Miguel de Cervantes in the 13th century. Don Quixote is an old man who thinks he's a knight, who's riding around on a donkey attacking windmills with a broomstick. But in his mind, he's a knight and he's fighting dragons with this big lance, right? And so in his mind, he's completely delusional. And I went home that night. I was exhausted. I came in the door. I sat down. I looked at my wife, and this is a true story. And I said, I think I'm Don Quixote. I really do. I think I'm delusional. I lose to everybody. I don't win any rounds. The longer the training camp goes on, the worse I get. And I'm like, I think I truly underestimated my skill set and overestimated my skill set, sorry, and underestimated what it was going to take for me to be successful. And my wife, Stella, as she always does, gave me the perspective I needed. And she's like, do you think that Greg Choplin and Manolo Lopez, my other coach, would they put that kind of energy into you? Would they give their passion? And these guys truly love you. Do you think they'd do that if they didn't believe that you could win? And it kind of hit me that night. I was exhausted and I took those words in. I took Greg's words in. And I got up the next morning. And again, this is all a true story. And I went to spar at a different place, Freedom Fighters MMA, that next morning. And when I got up, I said, okay, the message had sunk in. I'm like, I know what Greg's saying. I've got to look for that. Look for the moment where I can't breathe. Look for the moment where I'm overwhelmed. And Stella's right. These guys believe in me. I have to believe in me as much as they do. They're the subject matter experts, right? And I remember stepping in the bathroom that morning as I'm thinking this, and I started peeing blood. And I was peeing blood from all the knees that I'd taken in my kidneys. And I'd heard this story before from other fighters, and they said, "Well, you get all these knees in your kidneys, you'll pee blood, but it'll literally pass. You'll be fine." And so, like fighters do, I'm like, "Well, fighters must be like doctors. They must know exactly, right?" So I said to myself, "You're going to go spar. You're not going to say a word to Stella, and if it's not healed by this evening, you'll go to the doctor. You'll go to hospital, the emergency room." So I went into Freedom Fighters that morning, and I remember Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero at this time was getting ready to fight Robert Whitaker for the UFC middleweight championship, and he's the number one ranked middleweight. He's a monster. He is an absolute. Everybody's head drops because the alpha just stepped in, and everybody's like, "Oh my god! I hope he doesn't call me out to spar because on one hand I need to spar with him, on the other hand it's a nightmare, right?" And first thing in the morning, Yoel looks at me and he goes, "Stuart, you and me, first round, brother." And I try and make a joke, Andrew. I'm like, come on, you got a bunch of 15 like real fighters here. He goes, nope,
Yeah.
let's go. And I was scared and I was exhausted. I was more tired than I was that previous day, Friday. And I just said to myself, this is what Greg was talking about. And this is what Stella was talking about. This is my moment. Right now, this moment, I get to decide who I am, right? And I didn't beat Yoel Romero in sparring, but I gave Yoel the best round he's ever had against me. And I actually landed some shots. I remember the last 30 seconds, he pulls me in the corner and he pushes me against the cage. And we just trading shots for like 30 seconds. And he's pushing me under his breath. He's going, come on, keep up, keep up, keep up, keep up. And clearly he's not landing full speed or full power because I'm here talking to you today. As soon as the round was done, he grabbed me, pulled me in, and he said, I love you, bro. Thank you. And I knew I had an obligation. He's getting ready to fight for the UFC championship. I had an obligation to give him the best round I could to make him as good as I could help make him to win. And anything else, I'm not a teammate. If I called it in, if I gave him a half-ass round, he's not going to knock me out. He's going to bang me up, but he's going to let me survive. What good did I do him or me? And all that happened that day was I beat Stuart Dansby from the previous day by this much, right?
Yeah.
By this much. And what I did in my mind was I developed my mind that much stronger, that much more powerful. And that is what helped me that moment is what helped me through the rest of my fights.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to what we were talking about earlier, where this is just a story of life. And I think, we've all started something new, be it a new job, a new relationship, whatever you want to think of, that you you might suck at the beginning. But if you continue to get a little bit better every day, that's success, and eventually you're going to get the big win. But sometimes it takes that chipping away at just the little victories to be able to say, yes, I got better today. I'm going to get better tomorrow, right?
100%. And it's so much easier to quietly quit, to not put
Hmm.
that effort in. It's so much easier to, let's face it, we are creatures of comfort and we seek the comfort zone. And listen, I am all about balance in life. So I want I want that comfort zone, but I also know something. When I'm in that comfort zone, I'm enjoying it. Whatever I'm doing, I'm not improving. I'm not improving as a business
Yeah.
person, not improving as a husband, not improving as a father. I'm not improving as an athlete. And that's where we have to want that discomfort zone, and we have to live outside of it to have our highest achieving life, whatever that dream or those goals are, right? Because
Yeah.
it's just, again, it's easy to drop into that complacency. There's no growth there.
No, it's so true. And you hear so many of these entrepreneurs that are the big, huge success stories, and a lot of them say that if you want to be successful, one of the first things to go is balance, right? And as much as we don't want to admit it, if you truly want to succeed at something and be great, be it in business, in life, in partnership, you almost have to give up a little bit of balance, I think. Not
Dude,
100%, you still need to catch yourself when it's like, okay, I'm burnt out and I need a little bit of recovery, but it's being able to push past those days where I'm exhausted. I don't want to work tomorrow. I don't want to go in and fight this next round. Like, there's got to be that fire in you that's like, you got one more.
yeah, absolutely, man. You have to have you have to be obsessed. Let's face it, right?
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean you don't appreciate your wife and children. It means through that
Correct.
time period, you're going to obsess, and you probably need to communicate that, and they need to support you, right? My wife's always supported me, but when I'm in a training camp, it's exactly what you're talking about. It is a 100% obsession. I'm grateful for work because work takes my mind off the fight.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for anything that momentarily distracts me from the obsession of training and the obsession of the fight. And that, in fighting, it's also 12 months of the year. So you might have a training camp where everything's ramped up. And then as soon as you're done fighting, if you're healthy, you're back in training again and still in those sessions. I've told both my coaches, like, one day we're gonna do a session where I go, wow, that was comfortable, but it still hasn't happened. Right. Every time
Yeah.
I'm with them, like, okay, I know I was training with Greg early this week and I was driving to the gym and I'm like, get ready because
Yeah.
he's not going to make it fun. He's not going to make it easy. It is fun. You got to, because you enjoy that process, but it's never easy. He's always going to push you. And you got to have that. You know that as a CEO, right? How did you get there and how are you continuing to drive Muscle Insider? It's not from doing the sexy, cool stuff. It's from the daily grind, right? And that, you just said it. There's an expression I heard years ago, decades ago, from my former idol, Paul Mitchell, who started Paul Mitchell Hair Products. Okay.
Mhm.
My former idol, in case nobody gets
Yeah.
that. All right. That's why he's not currently. And I was listening to him speak, and this was decades ago, and he said an expression that resonates through my brain constantly. He said, successful people do what unsuccessful people don't want to do. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow. And so every time something's important to me, and I'm like, I want to get up Saturday morning and work on that documentary again. And I'm like, play the recording, play the recording. Who are you? Who are you? Right.
Yeah.
When the documentary was just as challenging in that regard of doing the things you didn't want to do and grinding, because I was blessed to co-executive produce this documentary along with my partner, Roar Post. Um, but everything that applied in fighting and getting to where I could fight for a championship applied in the documentary. The same things, like, man, I don't want to make another phone call. I don't want to shoot another email to a distributor. I don't want to enter another film festival. I don't want to search for another editor. All
Yeah.
those things, man. It's what makes us successful at what we do and what we love.
Oh yeah. Because you look at a lot of companies, no matter what industry, really, and the ones I find that aren't around after a few years, or even some that have been around for decades and then they go out of business. Like you look at some of the department stores that just kept that old school thinking of what worked yesterday is going to work tomorrow. They're not willing to put in the effort to change, to get better, to look at doing something different. Um, and I think that too many people get stuck in their own head. Is like, well, I've always done it this way, so I'm always going to do it this way. And they don't look for opportunities to get better in life, or in relationships, or in their careers, right?
Yeah, for sure. My coaches, even, as we've trained over the years, my knees have gotten worse. There was a point after a couple of fights where I had to have another surgery. And again, that's where I was told, medically speaking, you need a knee replacement. You shouldn't be able to walk on this. And so, to your point, we could no longer do some of the things we were able to do. And both Greg and Manolo were like, it's okay. We'll work around that. We will
Yeah.
reinvent what you're capable of. And nobody's going to know that what your knee can't do. They'll just know you have new weapons that are hitting them, right? And it's that exact same thing. Because if we'd have tried to stay, and I think the department store example you gave is everybody in their head can go, yep, I know exactly what you're talking about, right? But if we
Mhm.
tried to stay with that, what was a strength of mine no longer was, and we had to reinvent. But we've all got to do that in business, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
there's things as you took over Muscle Insider that had worked for them in the past where you went, we've got to adapt, we've got to change, we have to, this isn't what's going to help us to be successful now. You've got to innovate, right?
Yeah, always, yeah. And I think it goes back to, like we talked about, your support system, your coaches, your wife being your corner person, having those people that you feel trust enough that they're going to tell you the truth. You know, some people want that just yes person that's going to go along with them whatever they say. But you don't get far in life like that. You want people that are going to challenge you, tell you the hard honest truth. Sometimes you don't want to hear it, but it's got to be in the essence that is going to make you better, you know?
Yeah, that yes person keeps you in the comfort zone, right?
That's
That's
right.
the problem. And I don't like to use the word problem. I use the word challenges. I remember heading into my last fight. The biggest challenge we had coming into that was I contacted the promotion, the fight was set up, and all of a sudden the promotion reached out to me and they said, "Hey, the state of Florida wants you to take this physical ahead of time," which I'd never had to do for my previous fights. I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And so they sent me literally a 3-page physical of very specific tests that were, it's not even a normal physical. It's all kinds of things, right? And it's EKGs and brain scans. I had to get all kinds of different things, right? So sent that in about 8 weeks after my fight. Didn't hear back. Contacted the promotion. The promotion said, "Hey, now they want sparring video." And I'm like, "What? This is unprecedented. No fighter's been asked for sparring video." But I go ahead and do it. I film. I filmed with a guy that I was smacking around, and then I'm just like, I'm not sending this in. And the next day, I went and filmed with two current MMA champions and one pro and one amateur champion. I filmed against those guys, and I did 5-minute rounds, which isn't my fight 3-minute rounds, and I sent it in unedited. Right, just here's the raw footage so you can see. A couple of weeks go by. Now they come back and they say, okay, they want proof of your previous fights and proof of your opponent's previous fights. Where were the organizations? What were the dates? And at this point, I'm going through a training camp. I'm stressing because you're cutting weight. You're literally beat up. You're obsessing over the fight. You're just obsessing, right? And it's this crazy added layer of stress of you start thinking, well, what if? And what if is a cancer, right? And
Oh
it will
yeah.
grow as a tumor quickly. So when you start to feel that, you've got a rapid in positivity of no, that's not going to happen. I am going to get my license. I am going to get my license, right? So I send him all that information. Another 2 weeks go by. I'm literally a week before my weigh-in, and I remember this clearly. The promotion reaches out to me on a Friday afternoon. They said, okay, now they want an EKG stress test, even though I'd already taken an EKG, and they want a bleed out test to see how fast your blood coagulates if you get split open. This is a Friday afternoon. And I'm like, I didn't say it to them, but I said it to myself. I said, this is ageism. This is freaking ageism. That's what's happening here. And I said, how long do I have to do this? And they said, you have till Wednesday. So I'm like, I have 3 business days to get this done. I don't even know where to start, right? So I called my wife. And this is to your point, right? You got the yes people, and then you got the people that'll give you the real truth because they love you. And I just say, this is crazy. I can't believe this. This is freaking ageism. That's what they're doing. They're discriminating against me because of my age. And Andrew, what I'd done is I'd become a victim in my own
Yeah.
head. I gave them the power. I was now a victim. And Stella called me out on it. And she's like, I've never seen you in your life be a victim, but you are right now. You're a fighter. Are you going to take this or are you going to fight? And she was very direct. She said, fucking fight them with everything you have. Fight them. Find a way. They can't beat you over this. But anything else, and you're just being a victim, that's what you're going to do. And, it was, and, we've talked about this. You and I are successfully
Yeah.
married. Your wife has a great way of both humbling you and because you know where it's coming from. Like I knew she was right. And it pissed me off in a good way. So I start calling around and everybody's like, well, yeah, you can do an EKG stress test. Just have your cardiologist give us a prescription. I don't have a cardiologist because I don't have a heart problem. So I run out of time Friday and I'm obsessing all weekend, as you can imagine. I go down to my general practitioner's office Monday morning and I think I came in a little hot because I came to the front desk. And I'm like, I need an EKG stress test. I need this bleed out test. I got to have it by Wednesday. And she's like, dude, give me the coffee. You need decaf. Go sit down. She comes back 5 minutes later. She goes, I have good news for you. And I honestly believe this. My mission, Andrew, my mission has been to share this story since day one. Since my very first fight, I wanted to share this story. And God blessed me on a journey that I shouldn't be able to do. And I want to pay it forward. Now, I believe some people might say this is corny, but I honestly believe God was looking out for me that day. And she said, we'll get the bleed out test done today. And we have a cardiologist that we share an office in. Come in Wednesday morning and he'll do the test for you. No other place I could have gotten it because I would have to get an appointment with a cardiologist that I don't even know, right? So we got that in. I was a day late. I came in Thursday morning, picked it up, sent it into the promotion. I got a phone call on Friday. Go sell some tickets. You just got your license. But it took my wife adjusting my mentality because I had allowed myself at that moment to become a victim. And if you think about all those things that they challenged me with, you can say that they put me through, or you can say that they challenged me with. It was just more stuff that I learned to overcome in order to get what I wanted, in order to achieve my dreams.
Yeah, that's so key. And when you talk about she called you out on being a victim. I tend to find, that we've all met people in our lives that life seems to always happen to them, right? They lost their job, or this happened or that happened, and I tend to feel like people get stuck in their story. They almost get to the point where they don't believe in themselves that they'll ever be successful, they'll ever get out of that thing. So they're stuck in that story where they almost need to be able to tell people that they're struggling, life is happening to them, rather than just thinking, you know what, change that energy, like you said, put more positive and find a way to make it happen. Like, we know I face challenges that I don't know how I'm going to get through this, but you have to just sort of hunker down and be like, I'm going to do it. I know there's a way, and my support system will help me get through it. Right. So
Yeah,
it's
you
just, you got
find
to sort of move
anyone.
past it some days.
Yeah, and you find um, I talk about this at the end of the documentary. Find anyone who's achieved a level of success in business, in sports, in film, in the arts, sit down and have a real conversation with them. Just and pick their brain on the obstacles, the problems, the roadblocks. And you would be stunned because you're just looking at this human being that you say is successful. Look at this guy. He's the CEO of Muscle Insider. Like, he's successful. But you would be stunned if people sat down and listened to you and all the challenges that you've gone through and all the adversity. But you didn't tend to look at them that way. It was just that. It was a challenge of how can I beat this challenge? But most people would be stunned to listen to that. And so many people that weren't who they are today in their past, right? I was working with, talking to a young lady that I work with recently, and she said, I've always sucked at writing. Like, I communicate well verbally, but my writing is horrible. I said, well, the first thing is that's past tense. Past tense. That doesn't mean anything. You're also the first human in your family that's gone to college and graduated. Am I correct? Yeah. Okay. So you broke those generational barriers there. And that's, to your point, what people tend to do. I've always been overweight, so I'm always going to be overweight. I've always gotten close and stumbled, so that's what's going to happen. And that's the mentality I created instead of you win or you learn. Okay, you got close before and you stumbled. Maybe you've opened two other businesses and they've both failed. So now you're on your third. Okay, what did you learn? What do you need to do better? And maybe it's going to take the third or the fourth, but you just have to keep learning and pushing forward. And everybody that's successful at anything, at any level, they all have those stories.
Yeah. I think especially when you're working on getting to that level of what you would qualify as success, I think the mistake people make sometimes is the group of people they surround themselves with, the people trying to be successful are already what they consider to be the smartest or the most successful in the room. I know for me, even today, even though I feel like I've achieved a good level of success, I prefer to be surrounded by people that are smarter than me, are doing much more, they're much more successful than I am, and all of those things, because it challenges you to strive to become better. Not better than anyone else, but just better than I am today. And I feel the only way I'm going to do that is learn from somebody that's achieved a greater level of success than I have. So, or they have
Yeah,
more knowledge than I do. So,
you're so on point. And we need to be so grateful for those people that are in our
oh
lives
yeah,
and gravitate towards them. Again, it's easy to stay, I've got a good friend of mine who's a very successful executive, in the corporate world, and he said, sometimes I go hang out with my high school buddies, and they look at me like I'm some kind of a god. And he goes, I'm not. It's just they haven't risen, right? I put myself in a room full of my peers, and I got to be on my toes, right? And but they look at him as like, boom. And if you hung around with all those guys, God bless them, that's who you're going to be. We all know that. Your
Mhm.
parents taught you
Yeah.
that, right? You're a product of your environment. But I'll give the analogy of this. Um, I'll go every Saturday. I spar at Freedom Fighters MMA, and we've got a group of amateur fighters and we've got a group of pros, right? We'll spar 6 5-minute rounds, which is a rough, especially in Miami with no air conditioning, and that's how we spar, right? So I can be at round 4 and I can look around and go, I can kick that guy's ass. Let me go with him. Or I can look over and I'll see one of my friends that's a higher level pro, and they'll just look at me. And I'll be like, all right, that guy, I'm not getting any better. My ego will feel good. I can talk shit to my wife about how I banged this guy up. That guy is going to beat me. But if I give him everything I have, I'm going to be better. Right. And it's
Yeah.
those little moments in life, right? It's when you're in your work environment and there's a challenge that comes up. And do you back away or do you raise your hand and say, man, I'm not sure how to do that, but give that to me. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I'll take that. That's going to be, I got a full workload right now, but I'm going to take that. I'm going to turn my plate into a platter. Bring that to me. Right. And that's wanting that moment, like we talked about.
I love that. That's so true. You need to take those challenges sometimes that are going to push you out of your, like you said, out of your comfort zone, right? And that's the only time you grow is when you're outside that comfort zone.
Yeah. And it's remarkable. The people that retire and don't do anything and how quickly they age. It's remarkable.
Oh yeah.
And the people that keep working and maintain health. By that I mean maintain their fitness, lift weights, do cardio, eat healthy, and keep working. And how much longer and how much more productive their life is, right? Or the people that retire and they put their passion that they've had into something else, right? And because we're really not meant to just sit around, have a fixed income, and wait for nothing. That's why also you see the alcohol rates spike dramatically
Yeah.
when people retire, right? The suicide rates spike dramatically when people retire because they quit achieving, they quit having something that's important in their life. So that's my encouragement and that's my goal with this documentary. And I know that when people watch it, I know it affects their life. I get messages almost daily on social media about, hey, I watched this and it really helped me understand what I need to achieve my best life.
That's cool. Well, what would you say? Something I was going to ask you was like, what do you think was maybe the most surprising or the most, I don't know, interesting feedback that you got from somebody that's watched the documentary already?
I so I wouldn't call it. It's kind of our goal, right? Um, but it was a little scary to get the feedback. Last year, we had been accepted and were screened in 26 film festivals, both domestically and internationally. And as you mentioned, we won a ton of awards for best feature, best inspirational, um, and that was kind of in itself remarkable because when you're entering these film festivals, you honestly don't know if anybody's going to, this is your best work. And I've had
Yeah.
the production team watch it, and I had a private group of people, but they all knew me watch it. And everybody was like, yes, I get it. I get it. But still, you've never had total strangers. So you're handing your baby that you've worked on at that point, I've worked on it for 8 years, and you're handing your baby to strangers and saying, hey, is my baby attractive? Do you like my baby? And it's absolutely gut wrenching, right? And probably the first 10 film festivals we entered, nope, 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 just rejection after rejection after rejection.
Wow.
And then finally, and what would happen every time I would get rejected by one film festival, you have to spend money every time you enter. I would be like, F this, I'm going to enter 5 more. And I would literally enter 5 more that day. Right. And then we started all of a sudden getting accepted. And I remember the first one that we got accepted to, we won Best Feature Documentary of the Year, but it was an online contest. It wasn't that big of a film festival. So I think probably one of the more surreal experiences was our world premiere at an actual festival was the Silicon Beach Film Festival. And um, it's at Mann's Chinese Theater, which is, according to Google, the most iconic theater in America. So it was kind of surreal. I didn't realize it was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We flew there, my partner, my wife, and I, and I'm walking down Hollywood Walk of Fame, and it was a little bit surreal. I'm like, holy cow, this is where it's going to be. And so when you go and you watch it on the big screen in that theater, it was just really overwhelming. And I had people come up to me out of the audience at that moment. I remember one young lady, and she said, a friend of mine brought me here because he's interested in this. And she said, I got to tell you something. Not an athlete, never been an athlete, wouldn't watch a fighting film. But I just learned what I need to do in my life in order to achieve what I want to achieve. And that's what you look for.
Wow.
You don't know if you're going to get it, but that's what the goal was. So more than the awards we've won, what's most important to me is how it affects people. And we've had so many people that it's affected in that way, that that's probably the, I don't want to say surprising, but it's definitively the reward, if you will.
Yeah,
And
the
nobody
maybe the
this can
most
make money.
impactful. Yeah. Now, would you say is that kind of the message that you were hoping to have people take away from the documentary?
Yeah, for sure. It's it's edited, and we went through 6 different edits. And I'm not exaggerating, because every time we edited it, listen, Andrew, if you want to do something really narcissistic, okay, if you ever say, let me do something narcissistic, make a documentary about your life, right? Like, what could you do that's more narcissistic?
Yeah.
And so my fear was always like, I'm going to watch this and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be, hey, me, look at me. It's all about me. And that message isn't going to come through. And the first couple of edits were both clunky. The story didn't flow. And that's what I felt when I'd watch it. I'm like, oh my God, this is horrific, right? What guy can't get 10 people to talk good about him on camera? Anybody can do that. Um, so I think that was the challenge, was how do you communicate that message? And absolutely that was the goal from the beginning, was how do we show people, using fighting as the metaphor, that you can achieve whatever you want by doing it this way, not just by being positive. No, it's going to take that energy. It's going to take you getting your ass kicked. And when you get back up, everybody says this, man, whenever I get my ass kicked, I get back up.
Yeah.
But you just brought up an interesting point. We all know those people who, when they get back up, yeah, I got my ass kicked. I'm bitter, I'm angry, or I'm a victim, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Everybody gets their butt kicked, and you got 2 choices: lay there and die or get back up. So we all get back up. That's not the question. Question is, what's your perception? What's your perspective when you get back up? Do you get back up and dust your butt off and go, wow, that was a lesson. Kind of screwed that up. Now, let me learn from that. Let me fix that and do something even better, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the message I want to share with people. You're going to get your ass kicked. But the difference between stress and challenge is one word, and that's perspective. So when you get that butt kick in, if you get up and your perspective is, wow, what a beautiful lesson, then you're
Yeah.
going to achieve, then you're going to become that CEO, or you're going to stay in that, because we all know that person that's been at the same job for 10 years, 15 years, and all they do is bitch about their boss and their job. And you're like, whoo, yeah, that
Yeah.
person got up with the wrong attitude. That person got up
Yeah.
angry, bitter, or beaten, right? And that's a choice, right? That's a choice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one thing I've been thinking of asking you was, you talk about making a documentary being very narcissistic, but at what point in this process did you think, you know what, we should document this. We need to share this with the world because it wasn't a weekend project by any means, right?
No, no, it wasn't. So I was preparing for my very first fight. And again, I'm not a guy who thinks about age. When I'm going against another fighter, I'm thinking, how good is this guy's high kick? How good is his left hook? I'm not thinking this guy's 22 or anything else like that. I'm just focused on my opponent and how to beat him. But as I went into my first training camp, people started coming up to me and saying, "You're inspiring me." And I literally was taken aback by that. I would look at them like I'm trying to knock somebody out, not get knocked out. I don't know what you're talking about. And literally it kept happening over and over and over. And I started contemplating this during that training camp because I had a relationship with Roar Post Productions. I'd done a television show with them years earlier, and they'd always said, if you want to do another project, let me know. And then I made it to the finals in that first fight. I fought in a tournament, won my first fight, made it to the finals, and I lost in the finals to a young man I think was 20 years old. Um, and it was a brutal fight. He was talking a lot of trash. And the second the fight was over, literally, he turns to me and he says, "How old are you?" And I was kind of like, okay, well, that was a weird question. I'm like, at that moment, I was 55. And I tell him, and he's like, "There's no way, there's no way." And as they hold his hand up, as the referee comes over and holds his hand up as the winner, he literally has tears coming down his eyes. And I have a beautiful picture of this. And he grabs my hand and he holds it up with his. And he looks at the crowd and he's screaming, "This is your champion." And he's pointing at me, "This is your champion." And I was overwhelmed with that. And then grown men, guys I didn't know, coming up to me, guys that weren't fighters, guys in my age group, guys middle age, were coming up to me and saying crazy things, holding me, hugging me, and telling me crazy things, how that affected them. And I walked off the mat that night and I said in my head, God blessed me with a journey I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have Manolo Lopez and Greg Choplin in my corner, either one of them, much less both. I shouldn't have guys like Yoel Romero pushing me. I shouldn't have what every guy my age asks. How does your wife let you fight? I shouldn't have a wife that's like, yeah, go kick his ass. You see that guy? He's killing you
Yeah,
with his jab. Why you let him kill you with his jab? That's my wife in the corner, right? I shouldn't have any of this. And God blessed me with this journey. And I want to pay it forward for other people to understand if I can achieve this as a banged up dude that's an average athlete, if I can do this, you can do anything.
yeah, yeah. Because it's almost a story that's bigger than you, right?
I think it is. I often say I am simply the conduit to tell this story, and I mean that. I think the amount of momentum that it got, the people that supported me, the people that came forward to produce the documentary is the same story of Greg and Nolo coming forward. A guy that I've known for 10 years that I worked with on a TV show came forward to my partner, Carlos, and he's like, "You guys are searching everywhere for editors. You went to LA, you're looking for, let me have this. I can edit this. I know I've known Stuart for 12 years. I can tell his story." And my partner, Carlos, was like, "But you never edited a documentary. Give it to me." So, well, we're not paying that much. He goes, "I don't care. You're paying. Give me the film." And he did a masterful job and won 4 awards for best editor because it's all about how you tell that story. My partner's son, who was 16 years old, who writes music, um, he came to Carlos and he said, "Why are you doing this standard music that you need copyright release on? Why don't you let me have this?" And Carlos is like, Why would you even want to do that?" He said, "First off, I watched the documentary already." No, that's what that Carlos said. "Watch the documentary with no sound, with no music." And he did. And he said, "Okay, I want this. I can score it." And he said, "You score hip hop. You don't do these. Give it to me." So Carlos says, here's 10 minutes, like almost like go away. Here's 10 minutes of the film. Go score it. said he came back, son, Nico came back 2 hours later and he said, here's what I've got. Carlos called me. It's like 10 o'clock at night. He's like, you got to hear this. You got to hear this. Here, I'm sending you this, right? And Nico, a 16-year-old, scored the film and won 4 awards for Best Original Music Score, including an organization called Accolade Global Film Awards, which is a highly credible one, right? And Nico actually just this week got a scholarship to, I think it's Beaumont University in Nashville, which is a performing arts school, a merit scholarship. And a big part of that was based on the fact that he edited this multiple award winning documentary. And that's that's how the whole team, when I said we all rise together, like people came out of the woodwork to be a part of this and to make it much bigger than just me and the effects it's had on other people because we've all risen because of this.
Yeah, I agree, and it's so important. Like, and we've even had some of that with Muscle Cider taking over this year. Was my wife and I had people that we wanted to find a way to bring on our team, and they're like, I don't want to talk about money. I just want to be a part of what you're doing. And those are the people that you treat like gold. Like they mean so much, and they can take you so far. Um, it's just so important to have that system and that team in place that you can trust and rely on.
Yeah, because you're working with purpose and passion. And when you work with
Yeah,
purpose and passion and you're egoless about it, you have to succeed, right? There's a part I talk about in the film when I say, but the people around you with the skill, the education, and the resources to get you where you want to be and embrace that with no ego and with one goal to achieve your dreams. But you have to be the leader of that dream. You have to give everybody that energy. And that's obviously what you and your wife gave them because they got that belief from your energy and from your passion. And that's why they wanted to be a part of it and from your appreciation of them, right?
yeah, yeah. No, it's amazing, and I love this documentary. I think it's like you said, it tells a story that's so much bigger than it looks on the surface. Um, it's got such a deep message, and I don't know. I'm so proud of what you and your team have put together. It's a really enjoyable film. So
Thank you,
you've
brother.
done a
I
great job.
greatly, greatly
Yeah, man.
appreciate that. Thank you. We have, right? You said it. The team
Yes,
has.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
I
No,
haven't accomplished anything, but we have.
that's right. Now, where can you let people know that they can view this when they're ready to watch it?
It's currently streaming on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, iTunes, and Google Play. If you're
Very
outside of
cool.
the continental US, it's probably easiest to access on Apple TV or iTunes because it's in 36 different countries on those. I
Nice.
think in Canada, I know for sure in Canada it's iTunes, but I think you can also get it on Amazon Prime.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I like it.
Thanks for
That's
asking.
great. Well, honestly, Stuart, I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and share with our audience all the details about the film. And for everybody that hasn't watched it yet, make sure that you get out there, check it out yourself. It's an amazing story, and I know you're gonna enjoy it just as much as I have. So thank you so much, Stuart. Anything that we didn't cover off today that you want to just sort of get a last moment a word in?
No, man, I think we covered a lot. I think my message to people is really simple. Be honest with yourself on what you really want to achieve in this life. Like, I think so many people are afraid to admit to themselves, like, I want to be an artist. I want to be an athlete. I want to open my own business. I think first off, you have a very limited life, right? And how long we're on this planet. So be honest with yourself of what you really, really want to achieve and absolutely do what you love, man. Find what you love, do what you love, and be your own inspiration. Don't look for others. Just be your own inspiration daily. That would be the final message I'd like to share.
I love it. That's so true, and I think it really hits home the message of the film, and really what people should be looking for in life is just find your passion and chase it with everything you've got. I love it. I just want to say thank you again, Stuart, and I really appreciate you spending this time with us, and I look forward to seeing more and keeping connected with you as we move forward.
Thank you, brother. Much appreciation.
Yeah, thank you so much.